I started with a camera very, very young.
Yeah.
So when I was 10 years old, I asked my parents to buy me a camcorder. What I did last month, I put a camcorder in my hand at 10 years old. Did that come from me? Did it really? Or, even like Model Moss, when it's, oh, you had a great idea, such an original concept. Well, did I have that idea? Like, unless someone gave me that idea. I didn't have that idea. It'd be so wrong of me to kind of sit anywhere in any media outlet or an interview and say, yeah, I this and I that and I this, I'd had this concept for a film and, I was in Saudi Arabia and obviously the Saudis are very, well, who's this British Pakistani guy? And why is this British Pakistani going to direct this film?
Yeah.
Okay, he's had the concept. We'll thank him for that and let's get one of our Saudi guys to direct it. And so they tried. And this is the funny thing. This is why I say I just left it with Allah. I said, okay, Allah, if I'm meant to direct this, you're going to allow me to direct it. And if I'm not, it doesn't really matter because it wasn't meant for me. They tried 2 or 3 different Saudi directors. One was abroad, couldn't do it, the guy they had in mind. Another guy was busy on another job. Another guy wanted too much money to do it. He wanted too much of a payment. So it went in a full circle and it came back to me. And I was just sitting there.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islam Channel's podcast today. You are Abrar Hussain and you're here joining us on this podcast, and it's great to have you. There is so many things to ask you here today, but before we start anything, I want to know a little bit more about Abrar Hussain, pre the documentaries, pre all the success and all the work. Tell us a little bit more about your journey before you went into filmmaking and why you chose that.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for having me on the show. So as you mentioned, I'm Abrar Hussain. I'm a writer, producer and director, and I'm based here in London, and I've been in the kind of production, I wouldn't say the film production industry, but more just production generally for the last kind of 20 years. So alhamdulillah, my journey started from very humble origins here in the UK, filming a lot of local things, local events, and then just gradually building myself up, building up the skills, the knowledge to tackle really big projects. And alhamdulillah, now we're at the stage where we're producing these kind of feature-length films that are going on cinemas all around the world. And really, really blessed in that, alhamdulillah.
I mean, just wondering, pre all of this, did you know from a lot, when you were a lot younger that, this is something you wanted to get into? Was it just something that came naturally? Was it by, potluck or,
I would definitely say it's something that came naturally, definitely, because I started with a camera very, very young.
Yeah.
So when I was 10 years old, I asked my parents to buy me a camcorder. I had a camcorder. It was quite an expensive camcorder for a 10-year-old kid.
You're quite lucky to have asked your parents for a camcorder at a young age.
I think I sacrificed a lot of other things to have that.
Yeah.
And I had that camcorder, and I was literally that kid. I just loved filming. So I was just like, it was my new toy. I just go around filming everything. And I just loved working out what all the little buttons meant, like what the white balance button meant, what the shutter speed button meant, just working out all these different functions on this Sony camcorder and just filming everything that I could, like everything, family gatherings, weddings, parties, small Islamic events that we'd have at my house, just filming everything. And I love framing shots. I loved doing adventurous shots and different types of shots. And that was how I got into it at 10 years old. But it was never a career choice at that point. It was literally just a hobby. I just loved doing it. It was something I loved. And especially I was attracted to the camera. I didn't know what a producer was or a director. You don't know these things at that age. Yeah. Literally just that this is my new toy and let me film stuff and it looks cool,
And your family, how did they find that at the time? Were they cool? I mean, they bought you the camcorder, of course, but,
I think they thought it was weird. That I always... Because it was one of those, where that has the strap around your head.
Yeah, I remember. We had one of those massive camcorders, heavy ones. Sometimes you had to put a towel on your shoulder to hold it.
No, it wasn't. It was a bit further from that. It was about this size.
Yeah.
And it's strapped onto your wrist, so it's just there. And it was literally like an extension of my hand because I was with it all the time. So it kind of became associated with it. And then even as I grew up and went into other things and went into, university at, 18, 19, I was still going around filming everything because it was just a passion that lasted forever. And eventually that journey, I think a lot of people take that step where they start with something that may be a hobby, like baking, for example. I've got a cousin who runs a really successful cake business, but she just started just because she loved baking, and so she's just baking for friends and family, and eventually it turns into a business and becomes her livelihood.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's the way, isn't it? So find something that you really enjoy. So I mean, it's great. You at the age of 10, you already kind of was had taken that interest, and that's why you're here today, where you are.
One thing leads to another, keep building, and
100%.
You end up here on Islam channel, mashallah.
Yeah. And so look, you're a producer, writer, director. These are no little things. These are big things, and so with the work that you have done, and it's been it's evident that you doing it so well. How have you, I mean, I know you touched on it a little bit just now, but how have you mastered it? It's almost like you have, you said it came naturally to you, but how did you get it to this level?
I think, it was those years that I put in from between 10 to like kind of 25, say between those years. I was just continuously learning. And when you're learning about something you love, like say a lot of people, they like football, for example. They'll read about football all day, or they'll watch matches all day, and it's not like they're working or it's straining them. It was actually like that with me in filmmaking. Nothing was straining for me. I was just soaking information about everything, about all these different camera systems, different techniques of shooting, different directorial styles. Writing kind of came naturally. I was always a good writer at school, I remember. I was one of those kids. The teacher used to always make me go to the front to read my stories. Like, here's a good. So I kind of always liked story writing, and I guess my English was pretty good and my grammar was pretty good. So all these things kind of helped me. I think a lot of things just came into my favor. I had a lot of kind of natural skills that were basically which were very conducive towards filmmaking, and alhamdulillah, that's just a blessing, because I think some people have a natural talent and it's easier to develop that talent then. Whereas if you're kind of starting and you just want to get into something, and your reasons are maybe, I think this is a really cool career, or I think this is a career that I'll make a lot of money in, or something like that. Your motivations might be different in terms of how you're learning and picking up things. But for me, I just loved every part of it, and I was continuously watching films. I think this is very important. People underestimate how important that is. As a kid growing up, I was watching everything that came out that had quality attached to it. So, I started watching all the Oscar-winning films. And when I'd finished watching all the Oscar-winning films at around 14, 15 years of age, I started watching all the other nominees, because I was like, well, if they've been nominated, they're probably good films as well. So I worked my way all through them. And then when I'd killed off the American and British kind of cinema, I went into kind of Japanese cinema and Korean cinema, French cinema. I started watching all these different films, and lots of different influences, in my style, came from all over the world. And I think that's kind of been popularized now with the, I think this film came out, it won the Oscar, wasn't it? It was called, do you remember that film, the Korean one? It was called, I can't remember what it's called.
I mean, the Korean ones are really...
they're amazing, right?
The movies and the dramas are really trending at the moment.
They had a film that won an Oscar.
Are you talking about Parasite?
Parasite, that's the one. Yeah. So Parasite came out, and a lot of people are like, wow, look at this cinema, it's really good. But I was actually consuming that content from years ago, from 10, 15 years ago. I was watching, films coming out of Korea.
So you were doing this back in the 90s?
I just loved it, or early 2000s, 2000s, I was basically consuming a lot of stuff. And I think they all had, then you develop your favorite directors, you start looking at their style and what they do. Like, and, when I'm watching a film, I kind of kill it now, because you're watching a film, you're meant to be entertained, but I'm usually kind of sitting there working out, that's where they put the light there, and that's how the camera's moving, and they block the actor here, and I'm just looking at all these things, how they're putting it together.
The angles. And all of that.
Exactly. So it kind of killed the enjoyment of actually watching a film for a while. But now I've gone more relaxed, where sometimes I just turn off and I'll just watch a film, because I still love cinema.
That's brilliant. I suppose because we never look at it like that. Obviously, we're not filmmaking, we're not producing and all of that. But it's interesting that that's how you're watching, and you're looking at all the shots and all of that sort of stuff. But tell me a little bit, since you're watching with such scrutiny, what are the differences you're finding with American, British movies compared to the
well, I think
the Central Asian?
Once you start watching international films and international cinema, especially the French stuff, Japanese, and even Iranian stuff, you start realizing a whole depth to their storytelling that is not really in the US or UK cinemas. There are some films, but the UK and US cinema industries are really, their film industries are geared towards making money in terms of getting people in. Whereas the guys in other countries are still making film for art, for for something they really want to say. Whereas in the US, the trend is like, let's just do a franchise. Like, franchise is a sure bet. Let's get people into the cinema, again, to make money, because a lot of this industry comes down to money. I think for me, it's I've always respected those filmmakers that are kind of saying, no, this is a story I want to make, and I'm not really bothered about who comes to watch it. If people want to come and watch it, that's great. They're not making it for a mass market. They're usually very personal films, or from personal stories, or from personal experience. So I related to that, obviously, in a big way. And I feel the industries are very different in these different countries, and I think one of the things that I'm really interested in now, that I'm watching, that we're literally at the forefront of, is Islamic cinema, because that is essentially non-existent. I know it's there in countries like Iran. They make some Islamic films, but generally films are more geared towards, okay, there's a Muslim in a film, rather than here's a Muslim experience film.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit more on that a bit later on, but something else I want to touch on is about Abrar, where you've been praised by major media outlets like, BBC One, The Guardian, the ABC News in Australia, which, itself is incredible, to be honest, to be recognized and to be appreciated. But by mainstream kind of telly that we have. And but how do you manage this kind of success?
Well, I have a rule that I work by, whereas if someone pitches me a project, or I'm thinking about doing something, the first thing I'll do is check if there's anything else like it anywhere in the world. Has someone done it already, for example? Because I'm really into originality. I want to make original programs, original films. I want to make stuff that people have never seen before, because that always just gives it that second X factor, right? So you can make a really good film, but if it's been done before, how much value is there in it? So I always try and have this acid test that, okay, has it ever been done before? And if the answer is no, it's very likely that a lot of media are going to pick up on it. These mainstream organizations, why do they like my work? They like it because oftentimes when they're looking at it, they've not seen anything like it before. For example, the show that we made here, Model Mosque, there was nothing like it in the market at all. It was just completely fresh, completely original. No one had ever done it before. And when you do something that no one's ever done before, obviously then it becomes news, because it's something new. So then the media picks up on it. And I find with the media, once they're kind of a bit like sheep as well. Like once one major outlet picks up on it, all the others seem to follow. That's the way it's worked out for me so far. I normally get one big article in The Guardian or something, and suddenly you've got ITV calling you up and BBC calling you up and all these guys. So they all just kind of follow each other. And
your take on that, you've been, how did you feel when you first come to get that kind of exposure?
Oh God, I thought I've arrived. I thought I made it. It was like I was very naive.
Finally you got it. Yeah.
I was very naive when that happened. And that happened. I think I was about 25, 26 when the first show hit.
Oh, so you were very young then.
I was quite young, and that was my first show. Remember, and all this media attention came, so it was quite difficult to think, not to think that, this is amazing, and I've done, but I didn't realize then. I thought it was an end. I thought, okay, I've done this, and these BBC and all these big channels have come for it, and they're it's going out to all these millions of people, so I've really achieved something big. It was only much later that I realized that actually I haven't achieved anything, and I'm literally at the begining of my journey.
Yes.
But then as we'll probably talk about later, the journey is it just continues. It all becomes one thing. People think that original show that was Model Mosque, that was a show about mosques in the UK. And as I say, when the media came and all that success came, I kind of thought, okay, this is an end in itself. It was only years later when I was shooting one day in the Haram, in Makkah, in the Haram, that it kind of dawned on me that, hang on, this is all just part of one journey, because I've been shooting mosques in the UK, and now I'm shooting the biggest mosque, the most important mosque in the world. So it just became one journey. I don't see those two things separate from each other. I see them as part of the same thing, and it's part of my journey, and I'm carrying on that.
I suppose also it's in terms of inspiration and ideas, but going back to where you did the powerful documentary on Al-Aqsa, and then I went to Makkah, and then most recently you've done the one in Medina.
Yes.
And where did you get these ideas from? Where did you get this inspiration to do these documentaries?
Yeah, I mean, I always had a great intention to do great stuff through the media, through my chosen field, which was film. I wanted to do great things for Islam. I wanted to, and at that time I grew up in the 9/11 generation, right? So it's always growing up with all this negative media stereotyping going on, all this negative reporting going on, and lots of propaganda going on. So coming out of that, and growing up during that, I was like, okay, I really need to use my skills to kind of reverse this situation, or at least put out something that is combating this tidal wave of negativity that's coming towards Muslims. And you've seen the result of that, because we're still feeling the effects of that today, right? And not enough people are kind of making products that will really kind of try and stem that flow. So yeah, I guess the concepts and the originality were all based on that, on my intention to do something really good for Islam, make something beautiful for Muslims to look at, and generally just make products that would make Muslims proud. That was really one of the most important things when I was designing One Day in the Haram. I was like, I really want to show this magnificent place in a way that Muslims are going to look at it and they're really going to be inspired. They're really going to feel proud of their religion, proud to be Muslim, because the mainstream media was trying to, especially for our younger generation, was just trying to whittle that confidence away, whittle that personality away, that identity, just trying to chip away at it. So I really wanted to put something out there that was just going to swing the pendulum the other way.
Bring some positivity, and it's great because you use your skills and to try and change the narrative. But is this because so as you said, it was the intention, and the intention was pure, the intention was good. Is that because you also other than the Islam being a negative outlook out there in the world, is it because also you were practicing, or you was practicing?
Yeah, of course. I've always had a very, very strong belief, and a couple of things that I've always believed, for example, is that if anything's going to come to you, if it's written for you, destined for you, it's going to come to you. I think one of my favorite sayings in Islam is that, if something's not destined for you, even if it's beneath a mountain, you'll still have it. And if something's not destined for you, even if it's between your two lips, you won't have it. So, when I go into these film projects and people think, oh, that's an amazing product you made in Haram, how did you do that? How did you even get the permissions to do that? I'm always really relaxed about that kind of thing. I always think, okay, I'm just gonna park this with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm gonna put my faith in that, and if it happens, it happens, and it's great. And if it doesn't, it wasn't meant for me. So I'm really, really calm about everything. Everything that's happened to me in my career, I'm always really, really calm. I just try my hardest, try my best, make sure, as I say, keep your good intention. You mentioned the ideas earlier, and it's quite funny how I rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because to be honest, when we were going into One Day in the Haram, I had no idea, even a month before the production, like how are we going to shape this film? Like, how's it going to be? And I literally went to sleep, just made a dua, went to sleep, and I woke up, and it was so surreal, because when I woke up from that sleep, I literally had everything. Like the entire blueprint for the film. I knew exactly how it was going to work, how it was going to be driven, how the narrative was going to go, how it was going to be organized, everything. I just had everything, and it was just incredible. And I was like, okay, I really can rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, no, it's great. Blessing. It's great to because it sounds in theory, we all get told this, but to actually have that trust, the tawakkul in destiny, and believing what is for you is for you only, it's a great reminder.
It really is, yeah.
But recently our Islam Channel team was at your premiere for the Medina documentary, and our multimedia expert Meriem Ismail was there, and one of the things that she described the documentary is as this beautifully massive and spiritually uplifting experience. Now, how long did it take for you to start this from the idea, from the concept to the end, the finished product?
Yeah, I mean, with Medina, it actually took longer than any of the other films. It actually took 2 years to make Medina from beginning to end.
Oh, wow.
2 years until we fully got it out, released into cinemas, and had that premiere. And by the way, Meriem said some beautiful things about the film, and mashallah, I'm always really astounded when people say such things about the film. But there's been the audience reaction that day at the premiere was just incredible. It was off the chart. I could not believe it. I was like, mashallah, so blessed. And I'm just really happy people liked the film.
Yeah, because as we were mentioning off screen, that it can be very nerve-wracking.
Very nerve-wracking,
because it is the opening, it is the reaction of all the work that you put in there. You said it's taken you 2 yees, so the 2 years work. Now
anyone who creates anything feels nerve-wracking the first time it's made public. It could be a book you're writing, or it could be like, a nasheed you've written, or you're performing. It's just always nerve-wracking, because it's that thing about having that external validation, or someone else saying. Now, when I make the films, I honestly I try to think, well, I don't care if anyone doesn't like it because I'm doing it for Allah. The relationship of the film is me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the relationship,
brilliant.
and that's why I'm doing. And so that takes a lot of pressure off me, because if I'm sitting there thinking, oh God, what's so and so going to think, or what's the media going to think about it, or how's it going to get reviewed, or then I think it would put you in a very defensive kind of mode, and you can't have that when you're a creative, right?
You'd probably have a lot of anxiety and stress as well. But
right,
how do you get to that point then? Share some tips with us. How do you get to that point where you know this is what you want to do, this is the work that you're interested in, you want to put it out there, you know what you want from it, and it's between you and Allah. How do you get to that level of faith then?
I mean, it's just, I think it's a culmination of all the experiences. Like, why did, I have to ask questions of yourself. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put a camcorder in my hand at 10 years old? Did that come from me? Did it really? Or, even like Model Mosque, when it says, oh, you had a great idea, such an original concept. Well, did I have that idea? Like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me that idea. I didn't have that idea. It'd be so wrong of me to kind of sit anywhere in any media outlet or any interview and say, I this and I that and I this, and that whole ego thing, which obviously, as you know, in this industry, there's so much of that. And just to think, no, actually take a step back. None of this is me. None of this is me. I have to believe that I was guided towards this. I have to believe it was a long journey, right from that camcorder through Model Mosque, through onto the Haram, and this is the thing with shooting in the Haram and Aqsa and Medina. As I was saying in the Q&A, someone put their hand up and they said, which is your favorite of these films? And I was like, I don't have a favorite in the films because I'm just blessed to make one of these films. It's such a big honor. It's such a huge honor, right?
Huge honor.
And no one's done it before. So and I've made a trilogy. I've made all 3 of the Islam's holy places. Now, I would have been just blessed to make one. Just one film, I would have been happy. I so truly, I can say to you, I would have been happy, and my soul would have been at peace that, yes, I've made one film on the Haram. To make Aqsa and then Medina as well and complete this holy trilogy is just like, it's like the blessings are too much. And, sometimes you can sit there and I'm sure everyone has this, if you're in this industry, in the Islamic industry, sometimes feel a bit unworthy. And I'm looking at, around and think, well, this guy is really, really talented and this guy is really, really talented. And, they're really good Muslims and they're really firmly on their deen. Like, well, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose me to do this? And I think that can be, you can feel a bit unworthy and it can make you question yourself. But then as a very learned friend of mine said to me just a few weeks ago, he said, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all his infinite wisdom did choose you for this. You were chosen for this. So you have to live up to this and you have to try and do your best with it and try and figure out, well, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me these blessings and what am I meant to do going forward and build it? Because I'm sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't allow me to go into Makkah and make a film on the Haram that had never been done in history before.
And it can't be easy either to get all the access and permission.
So easy, everything just fell into place. Like, I'm sure that didn't happen so I could then go and make a mainstream film and and make a big commercial hit or something. I'm sure it wasn't for that reason. So I have to ask myself, well, what was the reason? What am I meant to do? And I've come to my own conclusions regarding that, and obviously that's the work we try and do, and that's what keeps us motivated to keep making more
Abrar,
films.
surely in all of this you must have a role model or someone you look up to that gives you inspiration or ideas or...
Yeah, I mean, this is the funny thing. I'd love to say I had an Islamic role model, but as I say, when we were growing up, there was no Islam in media. There was nothing out there. So in terms of the inspiration, I think just good films inspired me. Films that were good, that were really high quality, that were really well written and really well researched, and had heart to them. Had a story that had heart to it, not like a commercial story that can never relate to anything like Marvel or Transformers or none. That's not for me. Yeah. But stories that had a heart, stories that really told something meaningful or had a good moral kind of a moral compass to the film. Yeah, absolutely. These things inspired me. But if I was to look back on when my younger years and think, well, who was it in media or in film that really inspired me? There wasn't really much. But I tell you one film that did inspire me, really, truly, from an Islamic perspective, The Message, which was made 40 years ago.
Yes.
And I watched that as a kid, and not just watched it, but watched it over and over and over again, and just loved that film, and still love that film.
Yeah, and the fact that that is a really, even now, that the way the producer of that, the way he had thought it through was brilliant. Doing it in Arabic and English, trying to cater for as many people as they can.
And he was a mainstream guy. I think he also made... it was Halloween, wasn't it? The Halloween franchise.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not aware of that, but I remember Mustafa Akkad.
Mustafa Akkad, yeah. He's
Akkad.
also the producer and director of the Halloween franchise, which is really like a mainstream thing. So for a guy like him in his position to do that, it was just incredible. It was groundbreaking, you know. And some of the scenes, they stick with you so much. You remember the spider's web when they came up. You remember Bilal doing the azan from the roof. You remember all these classic scenes. Oh,
those, those characters they were brilliant actors as well. Yeah. And up to this day, it's still
I'd say that was from my childhood was the number one inspiration. Was the message,
and the sound, the way that it thought of.
It was beautiful.
Very, very creative. Wasn't it? It was so creative.
Yeah.
Every time that the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu scenes would come on, the way they had showed
so clever
his
as
presence.
well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was so thought well of. I mean, I watched a documentary on him, but that's another talk on itself. On his life and how he had thought of this and how many years it took, but I love really the way they
portrayed Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because obviously they couldn't show him. He knew that. He was clever enough to know, okay, definitely can't do that. So what creative ways can I use? And you know, they always had the same music. Whenever the Prophet's point of view would come, they showed him in point of view. And whenever his music come, you know, now it's
you knew you were in the presence of the Prophet. Yeah,
I thought that was beautifully done.
That was amazing. That was genius work.
Genius work.
That was it.
I'd go as far as to say
and also,
genius,
he as a director, producer, had loads of challenges in his time with permission and stuff. But that's what I wanted to ask you. So I know you said the intention's been pure. Allah Mubarak, you're coming across quite humble with the way you've presented yourself. But there must have been some challenges and something. So share some of those with us.
I mean, it's like, the challenges that we talked about earlier. In this industry, there's a lot of egos, and there are. It's full of 100%. Egos. But, I think normally, anyone who's working in any office, like say you're in a lawyer's office or an accounts, there's egos, and there's a certain amount of, professional jealousy, and there's a certain amount of cutthroatness associated to being in business. But in media industry, it's like times 100, because, I find I come across characters who are just so desperate to make it. They're just so not even desperate. They're everything is geared towards like, I want to be successful. I want to be, and it really is a lot of ego, and that's quite difficult to deal with when you're dealing with people with ego. I'm sure I have my ego as well. But see, my ego, when I was making One Day in the Haram, one of the biggest challenges was that they didn't actually want me to direct it. I'd had this concept for a film, and I was in Saudi Arabia, and obviously the Saudis are very, who's this British Pakistani guy? And why is he gonna have?
I mean, we could have a whole chat on those kind of experiences.
So the angle was, why is this British Pakistani gonna direct this film? Okay, he's had the concept. We'll thank him for that, and let's get one of our Saudi guys to direct it. And so they tried, and this is the funny thing. This is why I say I just left it with Allah. I said, okay, Allah, if I'm meant to direct this, you're going to allow me to direct it. And if I'm not, it doesn't really matter, because it wasn't meant for me. They tried 2 or 3 different Saudi directors. One was abroad, couldn't do it, the guy they had in mind. Another guy was busy on another job. Another guy wanted too much money to do it. He wanted too much of a payment. So it went in a full circle, and it came back to me. And I was just sitting there.
But that's the other thing, Abrar, actually, is that if you've got an idea and you're putting your concept out there, isn't that something else to be worried about?
Yeah.
That someone else is going to just...
Not going to lie. Absolutely.
Snatch that idea and...
I generally, from when I was about 25, 26, I had the idea for Model Mox, having a lot of really original concepts around that time. And I being naive, I would share some of these ideas, and literally I would see them made somewhere. I'd literally see my idea. So it's happened to me, and I think it happens to most creators. It's a very harsh lesson to learn. But, I learned that lesson. And I think from there, essentially, when I have a concept or an idea that I want to make, I generally don't talk about it at all. And there's 2 reasons for that. I mean, one is that, obviously, I don't want anyone to steal the concept. If I think it's a really original or a groundbreaking concept, why would I share it with other people, right? Until it's ready. But the second thing is, I'm a big fan of not talking about something until it's done. Because especially in the film industry, deals fall through all the time. So you could have, plan this thing, and it could be really, really good, and you're out talking about it. It could not happen.
But it's hard, isn't it? It's hard because you don't know who you can trust and who you should share and who you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I suppose now now you've been in this industry and you've been, you've got all this experience. You kind of know now.
Yeah, I can navigate it better now, but it's still a risk, because eventually, because we're talking about big productions, so we're talking about big budgets, and if you want to get big budgets, you have to share. You have to share it eventually. So you have to let go of it eventually. Just take a leap of faith and trust someone. But yeah, it is a minefield to navigate that. And I'd always say to any young producer coming through, if you've got a really good idea and you really believe in it, only tell the people who need to know. Don't go around talking about it. Just tell the people who need to know. If they're funding your film or potentially funding your film, or they're going to work with you on it, then of course share. And confidentiality agreements are great as well.
Oh, that's brilliant advice, Abrar. That's really useful for those people that are that are going to be in that industry, even for writers actually. But the other big question, representation. Now, inclusivity. This is another issue. What have you seen? I mean, again, you mentioned a little bit about how it was for yourself, representing in Saudi, comes along this British Pakistani guy. But what, from your experience, do you feel is still lacking in not just in terms, for Muslims in general? For Muslim people like yourself that are in the creative media, industry, what is still lacking?
I find it's troublesome, the inclusivity thing, because it's so easy just to give token gestures out. It's so easy for these mainstream guys, to say, okay, let's just get this token Muslim in, let them do this, and let's gear it towards let's water it down and gear it towards our kind of main, and that's their objective. I can't really blame them for that, because they're making things for everyone. They're not making things just for Muslims, whereas I'm here making things just for Muslims. And if mainstream or non-Muslim audiences want to watch it, that's a blessing. I mean, I love that. That's great.
But didn't that worry you? Because as you said, that things are watered down so that it's fitting for a certain kind or the majority, and to try and say authentic is very hard. You may not get the success that you.
Hey, listen, I spent 10 years grinding here in the UK. I was making all kinds of great productions, very original productions, like Model Moss, like Faithful. Mainstream media will come and say, wow, this is great, amazing. But when I take a concept like this to, say, one of the big broadcasters here in the UK, BBC or Channel 4, sit down with their commission, say, look, I've got this idea and I want to make this, and it's got Muslims in it, and no, they're not terrorists, they're not extremists, they're not backward, they're really forward thinking, and they're like heroes. They're like, nah. They're like, nah, you need to leave with this. So it was at that time.
Oh, so they actually do say that.
They're just not interested in anything like that. I mean, like I say, I was grinding here for 10 years in the UK. I never got an inkling of that I would be able to get a big budget to make something substantial like One Day in the Haram. I had to leave this country and go to Saudi Arabia and live there for 3 years, to get that opportunity, to work that opportunity. And not like I planned it that way. I mean, I ended up in Saudi Arabia and I was just doing what I normally do, which is productions, right? I happened to do a production with a famous sheikh there called Salam Agamsi. Very famous sheikh, like 5 million followers on Twitter, just very popular amongst the youth in Saudi. We did a show there that was a Ramadan show, 30 days with Salam Agamsi. He'd do like an hour every day, and we shot it, and all through Ramadan it run in 2018, right? It became the highest ranking show on Saudi TV during that period of Ramadan, which was incredibly for me, because I'm a British director. I don't even understand. I can't even speak Arabic. But the way we'd framed it, the high quality we'd shot it, these things just worked in its favor. And Salam Agamsi just provided great content. He was great. To give him that platform, it was just the youth just loved it. Everyone lapped it up during Ramadan. And to have that, and then that kind of increased, like when I went into there to say, I want to make this film One Day in the Haram, about the Haram. I want you to open everything, give me all the access, and I'm going to put it on cinemas. Then people take you a bit more seriously than if you've done nothing there, but going back to inclusivity in the UK, I mean, I'm very as I say, I don't want to be down on it, because I know people are trying, and people are trying to make bridges and make inroads, and but I think it's a long, slow process to get where I'm at the moment. Because where I'm at the moment, I'm making films for Muslims. I'm making films to increase Muslim inspiration, to increase Muslim visibility, and I don't want it watered down at all. And if say, I think a lot of this is to do with timing as well. If, say, a mainstream opportunity had come to me when I was 25, 26, I think it would have been a big test for me to kind of sell out in a way and go, because I think that really is a big test. There's such a big calling to go and do something, and it might be a little bit watered down, and if people can live with it, they can live with it. I didn't have that, but if it came to me now that I've got maturity on my side, I've got age on my side, and I've got experience on my side, now it's definitely a no-no. If someone said to me now, look, here's X amount of money, we want you to make this thing, and it's going to make Muslims look slightly this or that, I just wouldn't be interested at all.
So it's built up.
I think it takes experience, and it takes time. Like I say, I wouldn't have been able to do it when I was 25. I think it would have been, if those kind of opportunities had come and people would put a big amount of money in front of me and said, look, we want you to use your skills to do this, I think it would have been a very difficult test. And I'm thankful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't give me that test.
Alhamdulillah. It is a big test, and obviously with being young and you with the packaging of looking great and
well, it's so enticing, dunya is so
100%.
enticing. Like these things are just
100%.
so and in this industry, as you know, it's 10 times more than in your normal kind of business kind of environments.
Also, I'm just wondering with the creative field, what's difficult I find is because obviously you have got to such a credible and reputable place now, alhamdulillah. But when with your personal life growing up, it must have been hard because you don't know if these contracts are going to come through, if this funding is going to come through. How did you manage to? Those are challenges, because those are also it kind of kills creativity because you've got to think about survival, and then
very much so.
Like you said, you were in Saudi. You wasn't planning to be there in Saudi for 3 years, but it ended up happening. How did your work life, family life, all balance? How did you manage all of this?
No, it was really, really difficult. I think, especially as a young producer, kind of growing up in the UK, say opportunities at that time very, very limited. In these last 5 years, lots of kind of these inclusive opportunities have come. Or saying we specifically just want women, for example, or we just want ethnic women, for example, or we just want black people, and there's these little programs going on, and that's really, really good, like refreshing. It's a step in the right direction, but for me there was nothing like that, and I only wanted to do Islamic production, so I was really narrowing myself down. I'm thankful that also another aspect of my development, and a big aspect, was going abroad and filming internationally with the NGOs, right? So I went to I spent about a 2-year period, and I went to 40, maybe 45 countries, all these different countries in the world that were really difficult to go to, places like Darfur, for example. Went out to Darfur, there was a civil war going on there. Went out to Swat Valley in Pakistan, there was I think the Taliban were there, at the time we was with the UN. All these different places. I think that really grew me as well, and taught me how to take creative risks, because it is a risk even being there, in those kind of environments. And I think that really was a big stepping stone for me. So one thing I would encourage young Muslim writers, directors, producers do is go on these deployments, get out there, go to these other countries, see how the other side lives. I think this grows you a lot creatively, but also I think you just have to be so tenacious, right? You have to be so determined. Sometimes in the Q&As, a parent will put up their hand and they'll say, hey, I really want my child to go into the media industry. What advice would you give them? And I think they expect me to say something like, yeah, just go for it, like do it, you have to believe in yourself, blah blah blah.
I mean, you are very fortunate, to be honest.
I would never give that advice. I would never give that.
Oh, you wouldn't give that advice?
I wouldn't give that advice, because, and you as well, we know how competitive it is. We know how difficult it is. It's incredibly difficult to make something substantial in this industry. You not just have to be really, really talented. You have to really have a lot of perseverance. You have to have a huge amount of drive. You have to have technical knowledge. You have to have creativity. You have to have all these things that will work. And then you have to hope someone gives you a break, or someone believes in you enough. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens doors for you that allow you to come through to make something major. Because it's all about making product that millions of people will watch. Else, why are we here? I could have the best idea in the world, and it's good if no one's watching it, then you're not having the impact that you might envisage that you're having.
But that is a huge task, isn't it, Abrar? To be honest, because you're really specific about your Muslim audience, and also promoting Islam in a positive light, and also kind of rebuilding and restoring hope in our faith.
Yeah,
and so that's not a.
It was
that's
a tough remit.
Yeah, that's not an easy thing to do. And so there are going to be people watching this podcast, and they're going to be that in the creative field, that will want to be doing something, as you are. And you're saying about advice, don't go for it.
Yeah.
So give us advice what they should.
No. I'm not saying don't go for it. Definitely go for it. But what I'm saying is keep your options open. This is what I'd say to any young kid. So if there's a 10, 12-year-old and they're going to me, what should I do? I'll say keep your options open. Do your studying, have a backup, and then follow this as a passion, follow this for opportunities and drive it, but don't put all your eggs into one basket, because I think that's a bit naive in this industry. And it's incredible. Like I say, it's incredibly difficult to do anything
is very-
major.
it's very difficult.
Budgets, even seasoned producers. I'm talking about guys who've won BAFTAs, who've even been in Oscar nominations. These guys, it's still difficult for them to get funding for their films. It's still a process, It's not like only if you're Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino can you go, oh yeah, I want this money, I want to make this film. Not hardly anyone is in that position. So I would say, drive it, be persevere, have a lot of patience and tenacity, but also keep your options open. When your break comes, when something comes and something happens, then you can build on it at that point. That's the time to take a risk. You don't take a risk right from the beginning and just cut off everything else and say, no, this is what I want to do, because, it might not work out. But then
there's also that risk, isn't it? When you may not work out, that I feel like if you don't have that option, if you don't think it's not going to work out, and you think is it naive to think like that? That no, it is going to work, and you just keep that mindset. Eventually, you will crack it.
Yeah, I would love to say that to young Muslim filmmakers coming through. I just feel like it would, from my perspective, it would be a little
dangerous.
Yeah, it'd be a little irresponsible for me to say that. To go and tell everyone, yeah, really get into this, go to it. I want to help people who want to go into it. We're even like talking now about running a workshop all across the UK, like going to different cities, getting the young Muslim youth who are really interested in this and literally giving out workshops and giving them knowledge for free, right? Yeah. To help this industry, because part of our remit is to help the whole industry, right? Not just hear about Abrar Hussain or hear for Red Face Films, which is my company. I mean, how many films are we going to produce, right? I produce one film a year. Yeah. Films take an incredibly long time to produce, right? Medina, as we just mentioned, took 2 years to produce. So that's going to be my output. I want to do more. I want to raise the whole industry. I want to help young filmmakers. I really do want to encourage 100%. Them. Yeah, give them.
We don't live long enough. We don't live long enough to be taking
you're absolutely
the
right
seat,
in that.
and that
you're
we have to share what you learned and pass that on, and that's your legacy still living through.
I really feel that. Yeah, you've hit it on the head there. That really is what I feel. And I'm. You might think this is a bit morbid, but I actually think about death a lot as well, and I think about legacy a lot. I think about what I'm leaving in this world when 100%. I go. And the films are great. Inshallah, they'll live for a long time. People enjoy them and learn from them, and that's wonderful that they're there. But I want to do more. I feel like I should do more, and I feel that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put me in this position where I've made a benchmark in terms of Islamic filmmaking, then really I need to grow the whole thing. Yeah. So our remit now is just to facilitate other people making great films.
I mean, we're still watching The Message, and Mustafa Akadi passed on a long time ago.
Still watching The Message. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, we're still watching it. We're still being inspired
waiting for the
by
next film to come that is going to be like that. That is going to be a mainstream film that is really representing Islamic values in the right way. So this next generation, I think, is going to be the ones to do it.
And so look, if someone was to, I know you keep kind of taking the focus away from yourself, but it is it is about you today. And if somebody was to make a documentary or a film movie about Abrar Hussain,
wow,
I know something totally different.
I never thought about that.
Before. Well, let's put you on a spot and make you think about it. So if someone was who would you like to portray you, and what would you like the message to be?
I don't know about who I'd want to portray me. I suppose anyone could portray me, really, because I'm pretty normal as it goes, right? But in terms of what the message would be, I would really like it to be, okay, this is someone who is a talented creative, who's used those skills for the benefit of Islam, who's put good product out into the world for people to consume, that has beneficial message, that looks beautiful. That's really important to me. The visual is very important to me. I always want everything to look beautiful. And just someone who had a really, really good intention towards Islam and used his skills for that purpose.
Brilliant. And so look, you've been in this field, you've got some great ideas coming up, but if you can share something about what is there to come that we can look forward to.
Nothing specific, okay, but what I can tell you, there are multiple projects we're working on now. As I mentioned earlier, my output as a producer director myself is literally one film a year. So obviously I've looked at this the last few years and I'm like, wow, we really need to. I want to be making 10 films a year because the market needs it, and the market is actually hungry for it. For cinematic films that are going to be on cinemas. My aim.
But again, how authentic do they want it? They want it, but we don't know.
I think they want authenticity. I think Muslims want to see real Muslim representation.
No, definitely.
Not the kind of watered down, not the Miss Marvel. I don't think that's, it's a touchy point, because I know a lot of people really admire Miss Marvel and Disney. I mean, Disney's on the boycott list. Like, come on.
It is on a
like,
boycott
Disney's on the boycott list. Like, why are we talking? Why are Muslims aspiring towards Disney? You know, and the amount of Muslims that came to me and said, "Hey, bro, you must love it that they made Miss Marvel. They're really putting Muslim representation on the screen." I was like, not for me, man. It's not for me, because I just don't trust that organization. Because that organization, you know, if you know about the history of organizations, it's just got a terrible racist, you know, history in that organization. And even now, recently, they made a film and they put a Mossad agent in it who was called Sabra, right? I mean, this to me is like, I'm just looking at this like, why are Muslims still watching Disney? Why is Disney as a VOD in any Muslim household? It can't be. We need to have our own things in place that can replace that, especially for our kids. So yeah, I'm very vehemently against those kind of things, and I try and tell everyone, like, just stay away from things like Disney, because these have a vested agenda against Muslims and against Muslims, having that sense of inspiration or that sense of their Muslim identity. I think it's just not something that is in their remit. So we need to combat this.
I mean, look, before we go on to our fire round of questions,
we have
we have actually.
Okay.
But just to really quite finish off about the documentary about yourself. But what would be just a message, if you had a billboard, a message that went out, a message to the world, what would your message be? It's a big question.
That is a really big question. And like I say, I think about a lot of things all the time, but I've never thought about that in all my time. So this is really like a fresh thing. I guess if there was going to be a film about me and it was going to be on a billboard, I guess it would just have to say, it would just be Islamic creative, an Islamic creative. Because I think I am creative. I think I've had, in my career, I've had a lot of creative ideas. I think I've done a lot of things for the first time that have not been done before, and that's always been my remit, as I mentioned earlier. I think, whenever a project comes to me, I'm always like, well, has this ever been done before? And if it has, I kind of lose interest in it very quickly, and if it hasn't, I'm like, okay, let's see how we can develop this. So I think just Muslim creative, Muslim originality, and Muslim representation on screen, I think that's what it would be. I know that's not exactly a marketing billboard, but I'd give that to the marketing guys and they'd come out with something.
No, well, it's still a great message, and it's still coming from you. So it's being authentic. So let's go to our quick five round.
Yeah,
so just obviously, there are some of these questions are deep as the one I asked you, and you haven't had time to think about it. So you just give what's on the surface, but it's from you. So we know you've traveled over 30 countries.
40, yeah.
40?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. That's brilliant. And what's the one place you drop everything to film again, if you could, tomorrow, and what's the reason?
So simple. Such a simple question. I love it. Makkah. Straight away, Makkah. Makkah, the first film, went there. Obviously, it's a film. It means a lot to me. But it doesn't just mean a lot to me, that place, because of that film. It means a lot to me because that film changed my life. And I don't mean that in terms of career-wise or financial. I mean, it changed my life in terms of my deen, in terms of my the way that I viewed myself.
Growth.
And my personal growth. I think in Makkah just changed everything for me. Being there and being in that spiritual bubble, feeling the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was just incredible during that production. So I think I went into that production as a certain Abrar Hussain, and I came out of that production as a not completely different, obviously personality, everything remains the same, but just in terms of my outlook, in terms
personal
of my
growth and
my understanding,
relationship with our creator,
exactly,
which is ultimately our biggest goal.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally proved to me then, and now once he's proved it to you, you can never go back. It's just undeniable, the power and the influence Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have on everyday things, just unbelievable and undeniable. So definitely, if I could go back, I would go back to Makkah, and there's 100 films I could make in Makkah. 100 films, different things. Yeah, because Makkah is so
brilliant.
Well,
there you go. That's amazing. Okay,
Makkah.
so look, on set we get the impression, as we're seeing you as well, that you're a very calm kind of captain, a perfectionist in your work. Or are you really that person, or are you let's wing it? Are you a little bit stressed?
I'm both. I'm definitely both, because this is the thing, as you know, with film production, it's like I plan things. I really do, to the meticulous detail, like, hour of the day, time of the day, where's the sun going to be, this the shot we're going to take at that time, right? But then plans always get scuppered. Things always go wrong. So then you just have to be very adaptable. You have to be very good under pressure, and you have to be able to react instantly to opportunities you get to film something.
Are you the director who gets mad and starts chucking things around?
I never chuck things around, because that would have an adverse reaction on the crew, but I will I will dominate the production basically because I'm a very big personality on set. I'm completely different on set actually. My energy levels just go up on set, and I'm kind of operating at 100 miles an hour, whereas normally you're going through and you're operating in 25, 30, like in the
well,
slow
you're in
lane.
the zone. You're in your zone. You're in your element. You're in your space where
totally,
you know what you want.
So things change. I become a different type of person.
Yeah. I mean, we all, in some sense, we are different in different places and spaces, isn't it?
I think so, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So tell us a little bit about Abrar Hussain that would surprise even your biggest fans, but we don't know.
What, something about me?
About you, yes. Yeah, you're Abrar, right?
God, yeah.
Abrar Hussain Singh. What tell us about you that would surprise us?
What would surprise
that we don't know?
People about me? I'll tell you what would surprise people about me in terms of my interests. I pick up interests on whatever I'm interested in, and I love research. So this is something that would surprise people. I love research, and I'll research to crazy levels about anything that I find interesting, right? Because you never know where it's going to end up or whether it's going to become product. But the thing that I'm really interested in now that most people is going to throw most people off is developing really strong children, like develop how to put the building blocks of building really confident, inspired, and original
I'm so glad you said that, because when you said research, I was thinking, oh gosh, that's definitely not me. That sounds boring to me. But obviously, everybody's different. That's the one thing that I would run from. But 100%, the future of the children, the building the blocks.
I love it. It's incredible. Child psychology at the moment is just hitting some crazy amount of levels, and the whole thing with social media and how these computers and phones are affecting child's brain and their development is just so interesting to me. I find this whole thing really, really interesting. And because I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, they're exactly at that age where, my 3-year-old has not seen a screen or touched a screen.
I don't have
a television. Listen, I don't have a television in my house because of my 3-year-old. Because I'm like, well, how can I? If I'm going to tell him don't watch screens, how am I going to be watching a screen? So we made a conscious decision. Okay, TV's not going to come in the house. They're never going to see smartphones, and I'll keep that going for as long as I can. But yeah,
that's very inspirational, to be honest.
Oh, I just love it. I really do.
I know there's people who do this, and I've seen it as well, and it's had such a profound.
Here's a really interesting thing, right? Everything in the world is getting younger.
Yeah.
Kids are growing up so fast. That's why you're seeing 16, 17-year-old superstars at almost every level of sport. So in tennis, in football, in cricket, in every level, you've got 16, 17-year-olds, and they're actually the best in the world at what they do, right? And the reason this is happening young, and we'll get filmmakers like that as well. I'm sure we'll have a 16, 17, 18-year-old director who's going to totally smash it, because kids are getting so clued up through the internet so quickly. So this is all happening, and there's major changes going on. Yeah. So yeah, it's just it's a really interesting field to look at the moment.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to the AI and that
That's
world.
But
let me just finish with these questions quickly. So tell me a little bit about Model Mosque or Faith Off.
Model Mosque. Well, Model Mosque was, again, just inspired by Allah. I wanted to do something good for mosques. You remember, you got to put the show in the time frame it was in. At that time, they were doing undercover investigations in mosques and reporting back saying, this is going on. That was the atmosphere. And the newspapers were just destroying mosques and the reputation of mosques.
And there's an agent sitting there and all this fair.
Undercover guys filming and filming imams and filming khutbahs. And all these non-Muslims were going, man, these Muslims, what do they do in these mosques? Like, what are they doing in there? So I thought, let me go in there and show people how beautiful it is, how peaceful it is inside a mosque. And, so that was Model Mosque. And essentially, and just before you go over that, just got to give massive credit to Islam Channel, because I took that show to several different places to try and get funding for it, and no one believed in that show. Everyone said, that's impossible. Mosques will never open their doors for you. And I was like, okay, this is not turning out the way I want. But then eventually Islam Channel were the ones who had faith in that, had faith in me to produce it, and gave me that opportunity. So forever grateful to Islam Channel for that.
Brilliant. Great to hear that about Islam Channel, actually. But if you were to add anything, a reboot or do any twist to that, what would you do?
I heard they're bringing it back. I heard they're bringing Model Mosque back, which is fantastic. So I think it's still a very relevant show, and obviously it's been like over 10 years since I made the last one, so a new one will be great. But I think there's a lot of potential.
So you wouldn't
with
change?
Mosque. Yeah, I mean, I think the times have changed, so things have updated. Obviously, mosques are at a different level now than they were then. I think that show is one of the factors that helped that transition. Amongst many other things, but definitely still needed. And I think definitely a much more focus on the youth this time around. I think the youth services in mosques have developed a lot, so that is definitely something I would include in there.
100%, and activities and stuff. But anyhow, you said it's Model Mosque is looking to come back on again, so we'll get to catch up with that.
Now,
if your camera could
Yes.
talk,
Yes.
what's the wildest thing it's seen that you would never get to see? We would never get to see, but it's your camera has seen.
I mean, the wildest thing my camera has seen that I'm filming with my own hand, because obviously, you know, when productions get big, you get cameramen in it, but I love filming myself. But the wildest thing for me ever was riding in the helicopter above Makkah. You know, circling the whole city of Makkah and the Kaaba and filming from, you know, 3,000 feet up, hanging off the side of this helicopter that
Oh my
was, you know,
goodness.
without a safety harness. Yeah. And,
Oh my gosh, without a
and just
safety
having
harness.
faith in Allah. No, this is good. I'm not meant to die here.
Dangling
Dangling
above Makkah.
And the thing is, look, we from those shots, those aerial helicopter shots, we produce some of the most iconic images of Makkah and the Kaaba. You know, it was just incredible, amazing. So honestly, blessed with that, and I'd say that is my number one top memory of what my camera has filmed. Yeah,
Excellent. And I just going to quickly ask off the charts. Your parents, how have they been? How they must be very proud of you.
yeah. People come up to my mum and say, "Oh, your son, did he make one day in the Haram?" And my mum was like, "Yeah." And then you know, another one of my uncles is like, "Oh, you know," and they have expressed, you know, alhamdulillah, that they're obviously very, very happy that I've made a good contribution towards Islam and Islamic media, and they know that you know, they know the nature of the work and how well it's been received by Muslim communities around the world. So of course they're very happy. But you know, parents, they just make dua that I'm safe. You know, they're not they're like they're very
That's
relaxed.
brilliant.
My parents,
It's brilliant.
yeah,
Well,
about this.
they obviously, you know, you're very humble, and so they probably, you know, humbly accept all the praises. So, although I think I would be different if it was my child, I'd be really enjoying it. All of this.
Yeah, my mum is definitely happy.
And mums
I think
should.
secretly she loves it when people come up to her and say, "Oh, did
Yeah,
your
I'm
son
sure
direct
she-
one day
yeah,
in Haram?"
because, you know,
I think
it's-
she really
for
gets
mums,
boosted.
yeah, because you get to see some of the, you know, the fruits of all the hard work. You know, although the mums haven't done the work themselves, but they're living through the eyes of their children's
Yeah,
work.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
and it's a very honourable, you know, work that you've done.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about earlier about the legacy, it's so important. I don't know if it's an age thing, or is it because if you're someone of gratitude, or is it just from when you get to a certain level of success, we've got to have those moments with ourselves.
Yeah.
Sit with ourselves with legacy.
Oh God,
and
you're so
think
correct.
about
Yeah.
what is it you
I
want to
think
leave
about
behind.
it so much more now than I used to 10 years ago. Like now I think about death, but you're meant to think about death. I think, you know, Islam teaches us to be continuously aware of
to
the,
talk about
the
it,
end,
to
yeah,
think
and
about
to
it.
do ghusl on a body, go to the graveyard and things like this. And I think that's definitely increased with me over the last 10 years. And I definitely think about that a lot more. And like I say, a lot of my focus when I'm thinking about how to expand this thing or what to do next is literally based on legacy and how I can raise this whole industry rather than just thinking about Abrar Hussain as a single entity, as a single kind of company or a producer. Think about the whole Islamic film industry. How can we raise this? You know, how can we make it normal for Islamic films to be on the cinema? You know, so you've got your Marvel, you've got your James Bond, you've got your other films, and let's have an Islamic film in there as well.
James Bond
to give our people an option. You know,
Inshallah. I mean, and look, you've given us some really great advice, and you've given us something to even look forward to some of the projects that you're going to be working on. Inshallah, may it be a success. But we are going to be kind of coming to an end. But I quickly wanted to just touch on: there is still hope for us because there's AI now. Right. So AI some would say is killing a lot of creativity and is you know, robbing us all from taking us into another matrix world. What do you think in terms of the media creative world and alongside AI?
I mean, I actually love it because I think it opens the door for a lot of people who are maybe not as creative. It helps them, assist them to be creative because they can put something in there and it will give them. It is very intelligent. Come on, it is very, very intelligent. And I just want to give you an example of something I read in the. Yeah, it's a cheat, right? It's a cheat. No way. Definitely, absolutely, it's a cheat. So people who've trained in this industry, who've trained to be writers or trained to be graphic designers or trained to be computer programmers, even they're gonna feel so cheated when this thing can just do it like that, right? But what I was gonna say is there is a screenwriter called Paul Schrader. I don't know if you've heard of Paul Schrader. He's an Oscar-winning screenwriter, right? Oscar-winning. He won the Oscar for Taxi Driver way back when, and he's done many films. He's very well respected in Hollywood and one of the top writers, I'd say. This guy said, I wanted to do a test with AI, so he had a script he was working on, and so he inputted all the variables into AI, and he said, hey, write me a version of this script. And he said what AI came out with was better than what I wrote.
Oh
and
my gosh.
this is an Oscar winning now.
I don't know
this
if
is
I
a
like
guy,
this.
Yeah, right. So this is how scary it is. That if people Oscar winning scriptwriters are saying it's writing a better script than what I could write, that's definitely a sign that this thing is not going to stop. So the best thing to do, I think, is to get with it and see how you can utilize it for good.
I guess embrace it and work with it.
Yeah, absolutely. 'Cause it's not going away. It's like social media.
Yeah, it's not going.
It's like social media. When
It's
social
not going
media
away.
first came, it's like, oh god, I have to get onto social media. Else, like, this thing is just taking over. Like everyone's on this, so there's no escaping it. Just have to try and use it for good.
That's absolutely true. But, there isn't escaping of it. It's not going anywhere. So we've got to utilize it in a way that works with us. And of course, we have got bigger things to think about and trying to use all of these tools in some sense to, as you said, leave a legacy and to leave something.
That they are tools, as you mentioned. They're tools, right? And I think the creative will always still come into it. The human element always still come. Remember, ideas usually come from one single person. Like, you can sit in a group, or you can sit with your computer system, you can like generate ideas, but ideas generally come from one person. So I think that spark will still be there within humans. So I think we'll always have a
I hope
very
so. I hope
role.
so. I hope while there's still breath in people's bodies, that we are still able to use our brains and facilitate and present or demonstrate some great genius.
I really worry that AI will dumb us down because it make everything so easy. So it'll make us we won't need to think about anything.
Yeah. So I hope, inshallah. Well, let's hope, inshallah, that it's used the right way. But it's been great. It's been great talking to you, Abrar Hussain. It's been fantastic. You've given us some great advice and a little bit into the world of creativity in terms of being a director, producer, writer, and you have demonstrated some amazing work that people have recognized and that has given you great success. And I love the fact that you are thinking about your legacy and thinking about the end of our life, which we all should, and what we can do to bring the future directors, producers, writers, creative people, and inshallah, may it all be a success. And I hope you and wish you all the best for the future with your projects.
It's been great being on here. It's a really nice conversation.
Thank you so much.